All right, what's up, guys? To start, RIP Andrew Tate social media, banned from YouTube, banned from Twitch, banned from Facebook. And the crazy part is, I can't think of specific rules on those platforms he broke. What happened is advocacy groups petitioned to get him removed from the platforms for his misogynistic views in general, right? That's the idea. And the strongest evidence for banning him would be the accusations of being a sex trafficker, which have not been proven by any stretch of the imagination. There's no evidence that those are true. And what else is a reason for Andrew Tate to be banned? And there's some clips of him saying things like, 40% of the reason that I left to Romania is because accusations for sex related crimes don't get are harder to prosecute. But that has to be taken into context because he had a false accusation that destroyed his business temporarily, right? He had an accusation in England that he ended up not being guilty or not being, he didn't go to jail or anything. He wasn't convicted, but that accusation, they raided his house, took all his stuff. They, did so much damage to his business just based on a girl being upset with him and making an accusation. So when you think of that context, that false accusations do happen and they do ruin men's lives. Look at Johnny Depp. Then saying moving to a country where they have a different process about that kind of starts to make sense. Like it sounds bad. There's another one where he said women should bear some responsibility for being raped. That one, taken out of context, sounds awful, right? Just that sentence by itself. But it was in the context of, imagine I get super drunk. I walk down a dark alleyway by myself in a dangerous part of town. It's not my fault if I get mugged or if I get robbed or whatever, right? It's not my fault, but I bear some responsibility in making decisions that made me vulnerable to that. So fault and responsibility aren't the same thing. I wouldn't, if he's saying it's your fault, yeah, that's awful, right? Of course, it's not their fault. But in some cases, you can put yourself in a bad situation, and that means you have some level of responsibility. So things like that, taken out of context, look really bad. But when you see the entire picture, they're not as bad as they look, and they're not as misogynistic as they look, a lot of what he said. And also a lot of what he said was clearly a joke. There's one point when he said, like, slap the bitch, and then that was a story he was telling that was a hypothetical, it was like a made-up story that was a joke. And they take it out of context as if he's really saying he just slapped this girl, took her, did these things. So I think it's kind of unfortunate how easy it is for us to create a herd mentality. People look at the surface level. Very few people did research as to whether he's guilty, what the crime, like what he did specifically. They just look at these 5-second clips that look bad and then make their decision. And I think we live in an era of increasing ignorance and a decreasing desire to find the truth because of short form content, because of things like TikTok, YouTube Shorts is making it worse. It was already bad because of the internet in general, because of social media in general, but it's getting progressively worse. And the clickbait and rage porn is taking over. And he's someone, even if he did do some of these things, even if he was purely misogynistic, that doesn't mean you should be banned from these platforms. In my opinion, free speech should apply to public platforms if they have a virtual monopoly. So if there's an equal to YouTube, right? If there's several options that are all equally popular, then banning someone, you should have that right. But it's essentially a public square when YouTube is where 95% of people go. Oh shit, the memory card ran out. That's not good. When that's where 95% of people go, then there is virtually there's no real competition. And so when you cancel someone, you're silencing them, right? It's basically, that's what makes it a violation of free speech, in my opinion. Yeah, well, I think children should be forwarded not adult content, and you should have to, just like YouTube, say this is for kids or it's not for kids. And if you put adult content like that for kids, then that shouldn't be allowed. I think that's fine, right? Stuff that's adult themed. And, kids should have, or like parents should have the option to show their kids adult content if they want them to, but that should be a choice, not something they're force fed, in my opinion. So let me pull this up. One second, guys. All right, that seems large. How does that look? Is my face half the screen? Because that's too much. Let's see. That's better. Okay. She's going to be reacting to a couple of videos. And then I'm going to later talk about why I went on a date with a girl for literally 5 minutes last night before I walked away and rejected her, even though she was starting to cry. So we'll get to that. But first, I want to react to Hamza because Hamza right now has, especially now that Andrew Tate's banned, Hamza has taken over the red pill. He's the most popular leader of men that teaches guys how to become more physically fit, more successful, more disciplined, and how to improve their lives, and also how to attract women. He has advice on that. That happens to be my expertise. And a lot of people who give pickup advice just because they know it'll get clicks have no idea what they're talking about. So I want to find out if Hamza is actually someone you should listen to in terms of dating advice, or if he's kind of a dumbass in that regard. Let's find out.
Company. Oh, it's too. No, don't do it, Jeffrey. Don't support that evil company. Oh, it's too late. Jeffrey's bought Tinder Gold. Finally, unlimited likes. He swipes, he swipes, he swipes, he swipes, he swipes. No matches. Jeffrey, if Tinder didn't work, then Bumble is. Oh, Jeffrey. Jeffrey's paid for a premium account on all of the dating apps that he can find. He's desperate. But worst of all, he spent this money and he's still not attracting any women. Adonis attracts women.
I want to make a compilation titled Hamza is in love with Adonis, or something like Hamza is sexually attracted to Adonis, because the way he portrays him is pretty over the top. Adonis. Oh my God, Adonis. Oh. Anyway, no, I'm not gay. Adonis.
Women, just like brown men, attract random bag searches. He implements the two-step process of meeting girls, which is far more effective than what every other guy does. Because of that, Adonis has abundance. What a powerful feeling. This is how he met Anastasia. I don't want to waste your time like most other YouTubers would, where they'll lead you up with some bullshit and then, waste your time for 5 minutes and Dollar Shave Club advertisements. There is a two-step.
By the way, this video is being sponsored by Dollar Shave Club. Well said. This video is being sponsored by Dollar Shave Club. It's the cheapest shave you can possibly get and is especially good for getting that down there area nice and smooth, because without that, you're not going to be able to, you won't be able to attract women unless you've got a clean manscaping job done. Don't get Manscaped, get Dollar Shave Club. This video is definitely sponsored by them.
Process that is more effective of meeting more new women than any other way that you've heard of before. Step 1, go outside more.
No, already not going to do that. Go outside. What the fuck? You live in the 19th century? Go outside? What is this guy talking about? Who wants to leave the house? I got my fucking video games. I can order Uber Eats, Fogo de Chao every day. I can order girls from Tinder. Why would I leave the house, the safety bubble of my house, the comfort of being in this prison? I mean, this glorious place that people don't leave anymore. Oh, okay, maybe he has a point.
You need to be outside of your house, and so go outside, sign up to sports clubs, go to the gym frequently, go to bars, cafes, restaurants, go to town center, go shopping. You literally have to be outside of your house way more to meet new girls who aren't online. And if you're relying on like fucking online, bro, if you are a Chad, if you're very attractive, if you have very good pictures, fine. Go on Instagram, go on Tinder, and like you'll be able to get an abundance through that, fair enough. But you wouldn't be watching this video if you were one of those guys. So have some fucking respect.
I think he's kind of wrong about this, because there are a lot of guys who are good looking, better than average looking, to where they could do extremely well in the dating apps, but their pictures suck. And they're not aware that their pictures suck. What you want to do is run your pictures through Photo Feeler, or have actual women rate them out of 10, And then once you get pictures that are consistently getting a 9 or above, then you know you have really good pictures. But it takes some effort to get maximized pictures. Just for context, I used to use a main picture on Tinder that once I got it rated, got a 5.1. And I thought that picture was like a 9. I thought it made me look really good. It did not. Turned out I was completely lacking in self-awareness as to what kind of picture girls actually find attractive. Then when I ran a bunch of pictures through Photo Feeler, I ended up finding one that is in the top 3%. So it's a 9.7 of all pictures. And now I get tons of matches. Now, I still don't really like using Tinder that much, but if you're not getting matches, it might not be that you're not Chad enough. Your pictures just suck.
Don't lie. You would not be watching this video if you were one of the...
Let me make sure the audio and everything's working. Let me know if the audio is not working. Just let me know. I want to make sure it's all good.
Those guys don't need to watch two-step process to attract girls. You're not a fucking Chad, bro. That means that you can continue this bullshit of like, oh, but you know, Tinder is the fine. Continue using it if you want. But the way that you can meet so many new girls is specifically you need to be outside that step one. Be outside of your house. Specifically, like I want to drill this into your fucking mind. You need to be outside of your house more often. You need to have reasons to go outside. The majority of men do nothing outside. They go to school or work, come back home, literally sit at home all day and only go outside maybe for the gym. Nothing else. And then step two, the very important part is that when you are outside, you want to get into a social flow. You want to think less about like cold approaching women and start just being that confident, social, warm guy who's speaking to like everyone around. Walk past people, nod at them, say hello to them, say good morning, good afternoon to them. Get into your gym, and if your gym has like a reception area, have a very quick chat with like the receptionist there. Go through if your gym has like a restaurant. My gym has a restaurant, so speak.
So this is very good advice. Being antisocial has a sort of momentum to it. It has like a gravitational pull that gets stronger. The more you're antisocial, the more you're out and about, or even you're just in your house alone, not talking to anyone, or you go out and you're shy, you don't talk to anyone, you stay to yourself. The more you do that, the more it gets difficult and the more it gets intimidating and anxiety provoking. The idea of going out and the idea of talking to strangers becomes. It gets more and more difficult. It becomes more and more, the resistance to it grows. So just by saying hi to people, just by having casual conversation, just by making eye contact and smiling at people as they go out, as they walk by, over time, your social confidence is going to drastically grow. Oh shit, my alarm is going off. And I have to solve a puzzle. Whoops. Hold on. Let me just turn the phone off. Okay. But just being social, talking to people, smiling, waving, holding eye contact, even saying, good afternoon, right? Or I like your outfit or something, right? I like your hairstyle. Just saying little sentences like that will show you it's not a big deal to talk to people. And that generally, as long as you're saying something positive, you're going to get positive reactions. And then your mindset starts to shift. And instead of thinking, oh, people are a threat, people are going to give me a negative reaction, because that's the default, to be perfectly honest. That's our default assumption. You start to disprove that belief. And then it becomes easier and easier when you do see a hot girl that you want to hit on, that you want to flirt with. It becomes easier to do that. It becomes the resistance shrinks over time the more that you're social. So this is good advice.
To the waitresses there, very quick conversation, get into the changing rooms, speak to a guy there, he's getting changed, ask him, oh, did you just finish your work? I was like, oh no, he's just come in. Oh, like, what are you going to train today? Oh, you're going to train this? Oh, like, well, that exercise, like, oh, you know, I hurt my back. Get into a fucking conversation like a normal human being instead of just being tied down onto your phone, just fucking forward neck posture on your phone. That's the reason why you feel lonely, is because you've placed everything online. The girls who are actively dating online, bro, they've got many fucking options. Being just another notification on her phone, being just another Tinder match, just another fucking cringy guy in her DMs. You're not special, you're not going to stand out, but being that social, confident, warm guy who's navigating life, just speaking to so many people, having fun conversations, and then you spoke to 5 people today. You know, you're going to the gym, you spoke to like 5, 6 people, you've had small conversations, and then speaking to that cute girl that you're attracted to in the gym isn't difficult because you're already in the social flow. And guess what? Maybe no guy has spoke to her in person, at least today. maybe this week. You know, you've probably heard before that, like, oh, hot girls get approached all the time.
You can't hear what he's saying in that clip, but his body language is really good. His eye contact is very strong. He seems unreactive. He seems comfortable with himself. So I don't know what he's saying. So I don't know if his game is good in terms of his verbals, but his nonverbal communication is actually really good.
All the time. No, they fucking don't. No, they fucking don't. If by approach you mean like the little bitch approach that men do, which is like they'll look at her and say nothing, then yeah. But women don't get approached anywhere near as much as you actually think, because the majority of men are fucking cowards. Majority of men will see a woman.
Yeah, he's 100% right. The only time when girls get approached is either catcalling, which I wouldn't count. That's a whole different category, like, hey, babe, whatever, shit like that. Or drunk guys in bars, right? Guys who are wasted in bars, they'll have the confidence to approach, but rarely does a guy come up to them in a normal, confident, sociable way and try to get to know them. That is very uncommon. I've literally had hot girls tell me, I wish guys did this more often, or I haven't been approached like this in months. I've heard that. So we have this illusion that women get approached 20 times per day. That's only if you count mostly homeless people, but the people catcalling them, right? The people going, hey, babe, that's not the same, right? That's an entirely different category of thing. Women rarely get approached in a normal way.
That they're attracted to, and do nothing other than just keep looking at her. Like, I see this all the time in my gym. I literally will see like an attractive girl walk by, and I'm literally more like observant of the guys than actually the girl these days. I care more about looking at the guys and just seeing them, and it just makes me cringe every time, because I'll literally see them like stop their work, I'll get distracted, look at her, and just kind of like keep looking at her. You know, when she's doing something, just keep looking, and saying nothing. If there's one single tip I could give you in terms of like, you want to start meeting more girls outside, you want to start like approaching more and getting like numbers and, you know, sleeping with or dating the women that you meet in your normal day-to-day life, it's to get into a social flow. This is something that all of these like cringy pickup artists, alpha males never pick up on, because they always say like, oh, you know, the 7 best direct approach openers. Shut the fuck up. If it's in your mind of what I should say, you are not in the social flow, and you're not going to be confident. You're not going to be sexy when you go up to her.
So this advice, I don't think it's very good, because yeah, you don't need a ton of crazy openers, but you do need a backup plan if you can't think of something in the moment. Because you see a cute girl, you want to talk to her, and he's saying just go into your mind and whatever comes out is good enough. That is the best way to open. But if you're not in a social mood, if you're not feeling confident, your mind is going to have this blockage. It's going to have basically brakes on, and it's going to be hard to think of anything. And then you're going to have a good excuse not to talk to her because you can't think of something to say. So that's where you need a backup plan, like, hey, I like your style and I had to say hi, or whatever, right? Something like, hey, I just wanted to say you're really cute. Something as a backup plan to say, so that when you can't think of anything, you don't just miss the opportunity.
Keep that in mind, okay? If you have thoughts in your mind when you see this girl of like, oh, what should I say? What would be the most effective direct cold approach opener? That means you're not in a flow state. You are in a flow state when you have no thoughts. You're just totally like present. You're just here now. You're not deep in your mind. You're kind of in a flow state when, for example, you just suddenly see like an old friend who you're really, really good with, and you get really hyped. You're not thinking like, oh, what?
So your game, your charisma, whatever you want to call it, will definitely be at its best when you're in a flow state. And I have over the years gotten very good at being able to get myself into a flow state whenever I'm socializing. But there is a process to getting there. And when you're not there yet, when you're not in the flow state, when you're feeling socially anxious, which we all do from time to time, it's important to have a strategy for getting out of it. And so the basis of it is talking to everyone, making eye contact, smiling, waving at people, whatever, going out of the house more. That's true. But it is also good to have some techniques, to have some things in your back pocket, to get yourself to have basically a template for how you can get out of your comfort zone, or how you can push things a little further, right? You're talking to a girl and it's going well. You need a way to move things forward, to lead her somewhere. I had a client that I coached this week who was a 5'4" Asian guy, normal looking, not a model or anything like that. But he hooked up with 3 girls during the program, during the 7-day program, all of which were very attractive. And the way he was able to do that was by having a specific strategy for moving things forward. Not just an opening line, but having an overall, basically, what would you call it? Having a framework for how to go from hello to bringing the girl to the bedroom. because if you just rely on instinct, that's probably not going to happen. So mostly you should be relying on getting into a flow state, having fun, expressing yourself. All of those things are the most important, are very important when it comes to picking up women. But there is another side, which is having some structure and technique will make sure that you don't miss opportunities for no reason.
What would be the most effective? Shut the fuck up. You're not thinking that. That's the same energy that you want when you're navigating life. You're going outside more with somewhat of the intention that, yeah, like, I want to meet more girls. I'm a young man. I'm horny. I want to, like, date. I want to have intimacy. Yeah, of course I do. This is how normal men met normal women 5-10 years ago. And
it's how my parents met, probably how your parents met. It's how everyone met. I know my great-grandparents met at a military dance. My uncle met at some kind of party. My great uncle met my great aunt at a party. Like, that is how people used to meet. And I think it was a much better way to meet than online dating. Online dating can be useful to get more options, but you don't know who you're meeting, right? You don't get to know who they really are just based on a few messages and some pictures. And it's very often I found that you're going to be disappointed with the quality of personality of the people that you meet online. It's generally not going to be very high. And if you just meet them in person, you get to basically do a vibe check, right? You meet them, you see what they're like. And if they're negative or weird or just annoying, you can move on. Whereas online dating, now you're making this awkward commitment once you decide to meet them to go on a date with someone that you don't know if they're going to suck.
Now this is seen as weird by, like, these internet communities. When you're in a social flow, it is a beautiful experience.
True.
I want to tell you exactly how to get into one. You get into the flow state by building it up slowly, not just suddenly you're just gonna get into it. You get into this flow state, like this magical moment where you feel so social. You have, like, none of these, like, thoughts, this insecure thoughts of, like, what should I do with my hands? And, like, what should I say? You have none of those thoughts in your mind when you've already been quite social today and you've leveled it up from the bottom. So this is called progressive overloading. You probably know of that concept, don't you, from the gym? Progressive overload. So progressive overload is when we start small, we start light, and we add more and more and more as time goes on, not straight away. So in the gym, we don't just come in, set heavy weight, and do it straight away. Like when we're not warmed up, we warm up, we use light weights, we use slightly heavier weights, and then it's our heavy weight. We've already progressively overloaded. This is what most young men...
So the technical term in psychology is gradual exposure. That's what he's talking about in terms of the social aspect as opposed to progressive overload, but it's the same general concept. And what he's saying is 100% true. This has been researched in things like cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's been many studies showing that what you do when you want to get over an anxiety or basically to become confident with something that normally gives you anxiety, the way to do that is by starting with something that's slightly out of your comfort zone. So that might be waving to people and just saying hello, good afternoon, or some compliment, and then walking away, and then build up from that further and further. So he's 100% correct.
So on. They don't speak to anyone in the communities. They don't hold eye contact with anyone. And then they go out to cold approach. So it's like they're going from here to try and do something that requires, like, this much of a warm up. And they
very true.
Can't do it. What you need to do is cross this gap with, like, social lubrication, like speaking to more people on the way to the gym, holding eye contact with people and smiling. Just walk past someone and literally say something out of your fucking mouth, because this is another human being that's walking past you. The internet and social media and, like, technology has fucked the brains of young men. And now this is actually, like, I have to give you this piece of advice. I have to literally give you this advice of, like, yeah, like, go outside and talk to people as if this is...
He's 100% correct. And I think as I grow my audience, as I become more, probably not famous, more likely infamous, more likely. But as that happens, I think one of the things I'm going to do is wage a war, especially on short form content like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, YouTube Shorts specifically, is to help more people realize how much that it's poisoning your mind, your ability to focus, and your happiness on every level. So I agree with him 100%.
New age fucking advice, and this video is going to get a good amount of views because it is now, because this is actually, like, a hard thing to do for people. So, this video was supposed to be about, like, meeting girls, and fair enough, we've covered that. Go outside more, be around cafes and bars and restaurants and gyms and clubs, and just be fucking social, be outside, have reasons to be outside of your house. If you're struggling with, like, online dating, then clearly, why would you continue that? If right now you don't get more than 10 matches a day on Tinder and on Instagram, like girls aren't replying to your DMs very often. You're not meeting girls from there. They're like, okay, you've tried it. What's that quote that people keep saying? Albert Einstein. I doubt he even said it, but it's like, oh, and insanity is doing the same thing and expecting the same result. Bro, you're fucking insane.
Okay, so his argument here is a little bit myopic because you could use Tinder differently, right? You could change your profile, get much better pictures, and then you might get much better results. So just assuming that because you tried Tinder and it didn't work and therefore it can't work for you is kind of, I don't think that's true at all, right? I think that's oversimplifying it. You can definitely improve your Tinder profile by a lot.
If you have tried online dating and you aren't getting the results that you want, you aren't attracting like a good number of women or like a good quality of women, then you need to try something new. You need to try something new. And the single best thing you can do is go outside more, have a reason to be outside, and then just be that social butterfly who's just speaking to so many people. And it takes time. The reason why, if you look at the view count of this video, I know for a fact, and you probably know this too, that 99% of those views are young men watching this who aren't going to implement this advice. You know why?
True.
Because it's so much easier and more comfortable straight after this video to be a fucking Jeffrey, to grab your phone.
So this is why people like myself and other dating coaches run in-person boot camps, because even though you're hearing this advice, which I mostly agree with what he's saying, he's giving overall very good advice. There's a few nitpicks, but it's good advice. People hear advice like this, but easier said than done. We are so addicted to comfort. We are so addicted to the idea of getting a little validation from looking at hot girls on Instagram and TikTok and saying that's enough, right? Getting used to being comfortable, getting used to withdrawing into ourselves and being antisocial, that it's so difficult, genuinely difficult, to go out and approach women and face rejection that most people, even though they'll agree with this video and be like, he's making good points, speaking facts, but I'm not going to do it. I'm still not going to do it. Too difficult. That's why there's a need for people like myself who do in-person boot camps where we take people who have these nerves, they have this resistance, they're anxious about approaching women, as most people are, but they're dedicated to change. And when they come out and meet a coach in person, all of a sudden it's 1,000 times easier to get out of your comfort zone because you have external leverage. It's just like hiring a personal trainer makes it easier to go to the gym consistently because you have external leverage. It's not just you against the world. And then most of my clients will approach 100, even more girls over the course of 3 days and get more success in that period than they've gotten in the last year. In terms of dates, many of them, about half of my clients get laid during the program. Almost every single client gets at least 5, 10, 15 girls' numbers, goes on a few dates, things like that. That's very common because it's true. 99% of people watching this are not willing to put it into action. They're not willing to get out of the house and actually face adversity because we really are a soft generation. We are the softest generation. That is 100% the reality. And there's an opportunity hidden in that because the generation is so soft and lacks discipline and is weak-willed. That means the few people who are not, the few people who are willing to resist the temptation to just watch Netflix all day and play video games all day and be on social media all day and be a battery in the matrix who's just consuming. The few people who are willing to resist that and become disciplined and do things that are challenging and to improve as a person, they will win on a level and be so much better than everyone else on a level that has never been seen before. So there will be more first-generation millionaires and extreme success stories than any previous generation because of that, because the competition is lower than it's ever been. And that applies to dating as well. Modern men are cowards. On average, they are cowards. And because women are attracted to bravery, if you are one of those few men that does have the bravery to put yourself out there, shoot your shot, and face rejection, it is far easier to get success, to get a date than it ever was before, because the only options they're getting are these guys who are only willing to talk to them through the screen, through Tinder. They're not willing to actually face their fears. So there is a hidden opportunity in the fact that 99% of you watching this are not going to actually take any action.
And go back onto Instagram, to go back onto Tinder. It's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's challenging when you have to literally leave your house looking good, smelling good, and actually get to that stage where you're doing something that's a bit of like a bit of work. It's not easy to go out and to just suddenly be social when you've been like a fucking hermit, especially over COVID. But this sets you apart. This sets you apart, and especially like there's criticisms to like approaching girls, but when you have done it, when you are in a social flow state and you're approaching girls, but sets you apart, and especially like there's criticisms to like approaching girls, but
a lot of that criticism comes from the fact that we remember negative experiences more than positive experiences. So a lot of women think approaching girls is creepy because they remember the guys that catcalled them, that harassed them. Those guys do exist, and that is awful. But they don't remember the time that they actually started dating a guy that approached them, right? That doesn't stick out as much. Positive experiences, this is a universal human bias that we remember negative experiences more strongly than positive experiences. But I've dated and slept with and had relationships with a lot of women that I approached. And I've had many of the other women and many of the girls I approached that did reject me still said thank you. They said this made their day, right? The fact that I approached them. To be fair, partly it's because I have social awareness and I know when a girl's not feeling it, she starts walking faster and trying to get away with me. I don't keep pursuing her. Some guys will. Some guys don't take the hint, or they come in a way that is just too aggressive. It's a little creepy, right? They're like, hey girl, they just come in weird. And when guys do that, it'll make girls uncomfortable. But once you learn how to do it in a way that is positive, that is offering value, you have good intentions. You don't feel she owes you anything. You're just getting to know her. When you do that, you'll find that the vast majority of your approaches are a positive experience, not only for you, but for the girl as well, even if one of you rejects the other.
But when you have done it, when you are in a social flow state and you've kind of progressively overloaded, you started with like, the old guy who walks past, you say hello to him. And then there's like some parents with their kid and you just say hello to them and you smile or something. And you go into the gym and you have a conversation here, conversation with, the guy that you recognize from the gym. Like, oh, bro, we should do a workout together sometime. And then when you get to speak to the girl, it's like, it doesn't even feel like a cringe, like alpha male cold approach anymore. It's literally just one more person that you're speaking to. And it feels so natural to be able to then just up your flirting game with them a bit. It doesn't feel like it's difficult. Whereas when you aren't warmed up, when you haven't gotten into that social flow and you see that girl, bro, it fucks with your brain because like, okay, I'll go speak to her. What should I say? This is why cold approach is so fucking cringe.
So I know this probably sounds like bro science, but I can say not only from my experience, but from my clients' experience. I see clients who take boot camps with me every weekend who've never approached a girl. And they're terrified at first, right? They're very nervous, understandably. They're anxious about approaching women. But I take them through this process proactively. I have them say hello to girls. I have them go through several steps to getting to where they're comfortable approaching women. And then within 30 minutes to an hour, I don't even have to tell them to approach anymore. They see a girl and they're just like, I want to do it. They want to approach. Their mind makes a shift between resisting and looking at all the bad things that might happen and looking forward to the idea of approaching and thinking about all the good things that can happen. And this is a very real shift that happens. There's actually entire books written about this. You can look into books about flow. There's a book called Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who's a very established and a very influential psychologist that coined the term flow, which is what he's talking about. And that state is something that is well proven to exist. And the way you get into that state is by doing things that are progressively more and more out of your comfort zone, but starting small, not overwhelming yourself. Because if you overwhelm yourself, then you get into a high state of anxiety and resistance, and then you're likely to give up. So there's an art to this. There's an art to getting into a flow state, and it's figuring and the steps he's suggesting taking. The way he's teaching this is pretty accurate.
And it's like, it's not as effective as most people like say it is, because when you have those thoughts in your mind of like, oh, what should I do? Like, you're not going to be fucking effective. But when you're already navigating life with this like flow state, you just feel social. You've had 5 conversations with people, you flirted with the waitress and everything, and now there's a girl that you really want, bro. It's normal, it's natural to be able to escalate things with her. Your biggest issue right now is honestly your technology addiction. And I know that's like a weird thing to say in a video that's about getting girls, but the reason why you need me to make a video like this and remind you, like, yeah, go outside and actually speak.
A lot of guys say they don't have time to talk to girls. They have other priorities. Yeah, look at your phone and look at your app usage. Look at how many hours per day you're on YouTube. How many hours are you consuming content? It's probably at least 5 to 6 hours per day. That's the national average, is over 5 hours per day of video content alone. So you do have time, and if you were to give up social media, give up watching Netflix, all that kind of stuff, if you just took that out of your life for a month, no porn, no fapping, take all that stuff out, what you'll find happens is when you're feeling bored, when you're in your bed, like, what do I do? You're going to start thinking, you know what? You're going to start thinking, you know what? Maybe I should go talk to some girls. When you take out all these low forms of stimulation, you're going to want to do things that are good for you. You're going to want to take action and solve these internal problems, these things that are frustrating you, like maybe you're not in good shape, maybe you don't make enough money, or maybe you're not satisfied with your dating and sex life. That is going to start changing, because instead of going to these sources of instant gratification that make you comfortable, you don't have that option anymore. And now you're going to actually start leaving the house, talking to people, going to the gym more. If you want one thing that would completely change your life for the better, make it so that you don't watch any content online unless it's specifically educational. So channels like Hamza, channels like online courses, books, things like that, I would limit them, make it 1 to 2 hours per day. Don't watch that all day either, but just give up all entertainment. And you'll realize it wasn't even that entertaining. It was actually causing more stress than it was getting rid of. And it was that content was putting you into a zombie-like trance where you are a battery in the matrix, where you are just consuming and getting more and more passive and moving towards a state known as entropy, lifelessness.
To people is because you are addicted to technology, you are addicted to YouTube, you're addicted to watching my videos, you're addicted to porn, video games, social media, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. You're addicted to all of these things, and they are fucking your capability to go outside and actually enjoy the world and be social. You clicked on this video because you wanted some easy pussy. If you are a Jeffrey, continue with the same life path that you've been on. Continue. If you strive to become more like Adonis, the ultimate man, you need to start implementing the things that actually get you to live like a fucking real life human being, instead of like a modern just technology, like this drone just consuming content, hyperstimulating. The single best thing that you can do if you wanted to be more like Adonis, the ultimate man, is to join our cults. Join this revolution. Like, we are uniting against these modern addictions, where we are men, like we are a group of men who are fucking sick of social media, porn, video games. That is the root cause of the problem. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have needed to hear this kind of advice. Think about that. 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, you would not have.
It wasn't as bad, but there was still TV, right? It was still there, but it's definitely gotten a lot worse.
Needed to hear this advice. This would have been absolutely common sense, and now it's like revolutionary to tell people, like, yeah, like, go outside. There's women outside in real life. You just have to go outside. Please just leave your house. Just fucking leave your house, bro. Just fucking look away from the screens and you'll be able to attract some girls finally.
See, the sad thing is that is the most obvious advice anyone could give, and yet the majority of people who are watching probably either of these videos are not really doing it, even though it's so obvious, because the addictive nature of this technology, of things like social media, video games, is very underestimated, right? There's a financial incentive for a lot of people to not make these things to hide how damaging these things are. And I firmly believe that in 10, 20 years, it'll turn out that social media, video games, things like that, Netflix, that they're going to have the same psychological effect as cigarettes did back before everyone knew how unhealthy they were, right? There will be a revolution where people find out. It turns out the research will eventually come in saying that these things are the equivalent of smoking. They destroy our brains, our minds, even our souls, the way that the way that cigarettes destroyed our bodies. That's what I think is going to happen.
I need to give you a disclaimer. Of course, if you're a slob, if you're unattractive, if you're not confident, if you haven't built yourself up, of course, you will not and you should not attract women when you try and implement this two-step. process of going outside. Of course not. Don't think that this was like the easy way out. Like, okay, I just have to go speak to girls, but like I'm 20 pounds overweight and my
Yeah, being 20 pounds overweight is fine. It's better to be ripped, sure, right? That's an advantage. It's better to have good style. All that stuff helps. But first of all, I'm about 20 pounds overweight. I'm working on it, and it is important to work on that. But I've still had no problem pulling very hot girls, including models recently, right? Within the last few weeks, actual fashion models, things like that. Very attractive girls, despite being a little bit overweight, despite not being the most attractive. And I've had clients. I actually had a friend yesterday. He is literally obese and he's bald and he's in his late 30s. And yet a cute girl, not a model, but a genuinely cute girl approached him just because the way he looked at her. And I was worried that she was going to be like, you're creeping me out. But she said, I noticed you were looking at me. What's up? And they started a conversation and then he slept with her. That happened because he's leaving the house. And I have another friend who's who's below average height, Indian guy. He pulls several times per week. And most people don't even want to do that, right? Hook up with multiple girls per week. But I've seen plenty of examples of guys who do not meet society's standards for being attractive do extremely well. You should improve your attractiveness, not just for women, but largely for yourself, for your own self-esteem, for building discipline, for things like that. But I disagree with his idea that if you're 20 pounds overweight, don't even try. That's what it sounds like he's saying.
Sense of like dress is fucking trash and I smell. The idea is that
if you smell bad, yeah, that's really going to hurt. But, buy some cologne, buy some deodorant. This video sponsored by Dior. Intense. It's the smell of sex. Even if you have no game and you're ugly and you use my affiliate link, then you are going to pull hot girls. Dior. By the way, that's a joke. Dior would never sponsor me.
You right now should already be improving all pillars of your life. Are you? Are you going to the...
True, but approaching women, meeting women is one of them. You can do all of those. There is enough time. You have enough energy. You just have to not be a bitch. Just don't make excuses. Don't use a scarcity mindset. I only have a limited amount of time and energy, so I can only focus on one thing. That's scarcity thinking. And if you think that way, it will create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
The gym or exercising consistently? Are you leveling up in your career, in a business, in your studies? Are you on that like holistic self-improvement path where you're literally improving your mental health, your social skills, your ability to be present and grateful, your networking skills? You're developing like confidence and leadership. This advice that I gave in this video and any advice that you find in any video will not work for you if you are like a low value, pathetic young man. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. Bro, never click on my video if you're easily offended, if you're sensitive. If you are a pathetic, low value, unproductive, sad, depressed young man, you're not going to get the things that you want. You're not going to attract women. No woman wants to be around a man like that. If you stay that way, if you refuse to change, if you don't put in the work, you will stay at Jeffrey.
So I agree that your ability to have quality relationships with women who have high self-esteem and have their life together is going to be very, very limited if you're not doing these things he's talking about, like leveling up your career, leveling up like by meditating, reading good books, developing hobbies, going out, socializing, getting into better shape. All of those things is going to improve your ability to attract healthy relationships with women who have a healthy sense of self, who have high self-esteem and are high quality, right? But can you hook up with hot girls while being a slob and being kind of gross and not having your life together? Yes, you can. You absolutely can. It's not going to stop that from happening. And actually, I think it's useful to go through a phase where you date a number of different women so you start to understand, start to notice the red flags for the kind of girl that you shouldn't stay with. So you start to develop boundaries. So you start to develop a sense of abundance and realize that you can always meet more women, even if you get attached to one. So there are a lot of benefits to dating more than one woman, not just looking for the perfect relationship right away until you've reached a certain point in self-development. But what he's saying is generally true, that if you want to have a healthy relationship, then you need to level up as a person, because if you don't have those things together, then a girl who does is not going to take you seriously, right? Not for the long term. That's not going to happen. So overall, I agree with his sentiment. I just don't think it's true when it comes to one night stands, casual dating, things like that. It would still help make you more attractive to women in general, but you can succeed without having all of these things on your side.
And I just wanted you to visualize yourself in like an office wearing a shirt that's too tight around your flabby stomach, pants that are like strangling your fucking balls, sat there like, oh yeah, this is my life now. I'm just working on this computer, like getting all this blue light fucking exposure, working for someone else for like minimum wage, coming home and jacking off and just being so lustful over girls. That is the future for literally 99% of men. Or I want you to visualize perhaps a better future. Your mental health has been improved because you've been on that holistic self-improvement. You've learned from our cult. You've learned the importance of meditation and gratitude. And so now you're happy, you're at peace, you're in nature, you feel so fulfilled and level-headed and focused. You're not depressed. You have the ability to be productive. You use that ability to be productive on your work, your business, your studies. You level up. You're doing well in your finances. You use that to have a good diet. You eat clean, nutritious meals. You go to the gym, you're getting stronger and stronger. Those sleeves are fitting so nicely. It's interesting. Your sleeves are tight in your shirt, not your stomach. You're confident as fuck. You're feeling masculine dominance. You're proud of yourself. In which potential future are you going to meet more women? There are a growing defeatist group of men.
The only problem with this is I know a lot of guys who have all those qualities, who are in very good shape. They are very good looking. They make money, but they still have social anxiety. They still have resistance to this one thing because our ego is really put on the line when it comes to sexual rejection. The idea of approaching girls and some of them say no, that triggers our ego more than pretty much anything else. So there's a lot of guys who do have their life together, and it will be easier for them to get good at picking up women. They can learn faster because they have other areas of their life together, and they're going to have higher self-esteem in general. So they will have success faster. But there's still a lot of guys who are using those things as a crutch, as an excuse not to take action until they get to a certain level of fitness, until they get to a certain level of wealth. And these guys will come after they've reached the pinnacle. They'll take my program and finally start getting results, even though they had everything they needed and more for years, right? They were putting it off because this is the one thing that really got their ego into a state of resistance. This is the one thing that they just avoided. So again, generally what he's saying is true. And I 100% think you should visualize your future if you don't take control of your dating life, if you don't go out and meet people, if you don't create a world, if you don't create a life in which you have a lot of options. Think about the fact that you're probably going to meet some below average girl on Tinder who doesn't have a good personality. She's probably going to be toxic, have BPD or something, yell at you all the time. You're going to be in some kind of emotionally abusive relationship. That's very, very, very common because you didn't have options. So you just took the one girl that you could get and you settled down. And think about that life. And look, if you don't believe me, look around you. Look at your friends. Look at all the people who are settling for a shitty relationship because they were too afraid to get out of the house and say hi to people and meet women. Because they were too afraid to do that, their life became shitty and they ended up having a family with a woman they don't even love. That is possible. You really have to think about it. This sounds like it's just getting bitches, just getting laid. That's part of it, and it should be fun. But keep in mind, if you don't take action, what is the future going to look like for you? And if you do take action, think about that too. Visualize that. Think about the great experiences, the dates, the connection, the feelings of love and romance and all that kind of stuff, the adventures you'll be able to go on with women who are very high quality. Think about what that's going to be like and compare those two futures. And that will help give you the drive to start taking action.
Who will literally try to convince you that there would be no difference. How fucked is that? There is a growing group of men online who will try to convince you that the life that you live and how you develop yourself as a man will make no difference.
The black pill. And yeah, they're mostly idiots. It's very appealing to create a black and white oversimplified narrative that, oh, looks is all that matters. Nothing else is relevant. It's easy to agree with that because that's how our brains are wired. We like simple explanations and it makes us uncomfortable, gives us cognitive dissonance when we start to see things as complex and nuanced, and there's all these different, shut up, science, bitch. What do you got to make? No, right? That's why people didn't like, who was it? Al Gore, John Kerry, right? 2002, the presidential candidates. People didn't like Al Gore because he was so intellectual, so snobbish. Everything was complicated. George Bush, he just told it how it was. He's a guy you could get a beer with. And that was a lot more appealing than some smart, intellectual science bitch.
To have women being attracted to you. Would it fuck? Visualize this life. Flabby office worker, hates himself, comes home, jacks off. Visualize this life more like Adonis. You know for a fact, for 100% certainty.
I visualize every day, and I think it's a very powerful habit for, what's the word I'm looking for? For catalyzing change, for sparking change, not because some magical manifestation like the Lambo comes to you kind of stuff. I don't believe in that, but because psychologically, when you visualize something, it causes you to crave it and to desire to take action to get it. And it also makes you believe it is a possible future. There is a possible future in which you have those things. If you visualize yourself dating beautiful women, going out, socializing, having fun, being charismatic, then that becomes in your mind a possibility. It becomes something that could happen. And then when you start to believe it could happen, you're much more likely to take actions that will lead you to actually make that happen.
That what you want will come from creating this into reality. You do that by joining our revolution. Click on this video to learn more right now.
All right, so I think this was overall, this is a really good video. The one point that I strongly disagree with is the idea that if you're 20 pounds overweight and you're not making money and you're not leveling up in every area of life, that you shouldn't go out and approach. If you're struggling, you're like a 1 out of 10 in all of those areas, then approaching women should not be your number one priority. And I'm saying this as a dating coach, right? I'm saying this as I have a bias. I have a bias to tell people to go out and approach, but there are some people where that should not be your number one. That should not be your first priority. Your first priority in those cases is to level up your life in general, and approaching women will be secondary until you're starting to level up. But just because you're 20 pounds overweight or you don't make 6 or 7 figures does not mean you can't date very beautiful, very cool, attractive, charismatic women. You can, if you go out and take action. Those things all help, and you should level up in those areas. And you should constantly be leveling up in those areas. But just because you're lacking a little bit in, say, your fitness does not mean you can't succeed. So I disagree with that point, but pretty much the rest of the video, I think he likes Adonis maybe a little too much, but other than that, I think that was a great video and very useful. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button. And if you want to learn more about my in-person coaching programs where I take you outside of the house and show you how to approach women and give you that push, that emotional leverage that you need to stop just watching content and to actually go out and get out of your comfort zone, then make sure to click the link below to schedule a free call with my team. Is there anything else? So we're about to watch a video by Hamza and Adonis, the greatest cult leader in the red pill community, giving advice on how to attract women. This is going to be good. Let's see what Adonis has to say. All right. I hope that was working. I am now uncertain if it was working, but I'll be right back. Give me 30 seconds. All right. Next video. In this video, I'm going to tell you why I rejected my Tinder date 5 minutes after meeting her. So, the basic story. Actually, let me tell you why this is important. Most guys most guys are so desperate for female validation, for sex, for romance, that no matter what a girl does or says, if she's attractive, they'll put up with it. And what this does is lead you to get into codependent relationships where you end up getting, at worst, emotionally abused, and at the very least, end up in a very toxic relationship. And in this video, I'm going to explain why if a girl does not meet my standards, I will leave her at a moment's notice. I will leave a girl. I will reject a girl, turn her down, and not necessarily in the friendliest way. I will do that 5 minutes after meeting her. So last night, I met a girl on Tinder. This is making me want to delete Tinder more and more. But I met a girl on Tinder. She seemed perfectly normal. She was very attractive. She seemed nice. We met. We agreed to go get some drinks. So we met, and then she asked if I wanted dinner, if I wanted to get her dinner. And I said, no, I already ate. She says, well, maybe you could just get a salad. Maybe you could just get something small. I really want steak. And I said, yeah, I don't know about that. And then she said, yeah, there's this place called the Gordon Ramsay Steakhouse. It's supposed to be really good. And I look it up. I'm curious. I look it up. The menu does not have prices on it. As you know, that's a sign that it's kind of expensive. So the menu does not have prices on it. It's got the maximum amount of dollar marks. And so that means plates are at least $100 plus, right, for one meal. And I say, no, I'm not taking you there. Like, that's not going to happen, right? I just met you. Why am I going to spend several $100s on a dinner for someone I barely know, right? I'm not going to do that. And she says, oh, come on, please. Are you poor? Are you poor? Can you not afford it? She says, she tries to say it in like a sympathetic sounding tone while she's also being condescending. Like, oh, can you not afford it? I'm like, no, I can afford it. I make pretty good money, but that doesn't mean I'm going to waste it on some girl I don't know who's trying to use me. And she says, no, it's a special occasion. Like, I'm only here for a week. And like, don't you like me? I'm like, I just met you. And so what ends up happening is she keeps trying to get me to take her. She's starting to pout. She's starting to look like she's about to cry. And I say, look, this is not for me. I'm not interested in this. Best of luck to you. I'm leaving. And I left. I just left her. I walked away, and she looked like she was about to cry. I think she might have been crying genuinely. She's very manipulative. This is one of those things that you have to look for. If a girl's willing to use emotions to get what she wants, that's a huge red flag. So I leave, and then I block her, and I'm never going to see her again. I'm never going to talk to her again. And I wasted, the 20 minutes of my time to get there and to come back. But it's important to have boundaries for what you will and will not accept in women. So if I'm on a date and a girl starts doing things that I consider toxic, if she starts talking about how her past relationships were emotionally abusive, starts complaining about men, starts talking about male privilege on the first date, those are the topics she wants to talk about, I'm gone. I don't want to deal with that. And this is the difference between having a mindset of scarcity and a mindset of abundance. I know that there are a lot of women who are not like that. I know there are a lot of women who are cool and want to offer value and want to have fun and who are emotionally stable that I can date. And I'm willing, and I don't want to waste my time with girls who are toxic and negative and weird when I could be meeting those women instead. So it's very important to have strong boundaries, because if you don't, you are probably going to end up in a toxic relationship similar to the girl that I met. And also, it doesn't help if you're meeting women online because the quality in terms of personality, in terms of who they are, is generally lower on dating apps than it is in real life. The high quality women, there are high quality women on Tinder. There are high quality men on Tinder, but there are not many. They are few and far between. And look, in clubs, yes, there's also a lot of low quality women there. But the difference is you talk to a girl, and within 2 minutes, you can tell, all right, she's plastic, she's fake, she has the qualities I don't want to deal with, right? She is not something that I'm interested in. And then you can move on to someone else and find out if they're better. But on a dating app, once you meet a girl, you're making a commitment to go on a date. So the filtering out process, it wastes a lot more time and energy. And that's why I prefer generally meeting women in real life, even though I get plenty of options on Tinder. One of my clients, my bootcamp clients this week, he brought a girl from Tinder to one of the clubs, and she was crazy. She came up to me and said, "Hi, nice to meet you," like with a weird look. And so it was more like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." I said, "My name's Avery." And she said, "I don't like this guy. He's not trustworthy." And I said, "Because my name is Avery?" She said, "Yeah, not a trustworthy name." And she said it in a very like negative, serious kind of way. And and then she started approaching every guy in the club, even though she was on a date, and asking them for drugs. And she asked her date for drugs as well. So the whole night she spent hitting on guys and trying to get drugs. That is the, average Tinder experience, if you will. So online dating has this problem that you're more likely to meet just messed up women, and you're not going to know until it's kind of too late. But the broader point of this video is you really need to have boundaries in your mind that if a woman crosses them, you will leave her. And this applies to a first date. You should be willing to walk away from a first date. It applies to a cold approach. I don't care if a girl is a perfect 10, supermodel, good looking. If she says or does things that I think, if she says or does things that cross my boundaries, then I'm going to leave without hesitation. I'm going to leave instantly and meet someone else. This also applies to relationships. If I'm dating a girl and it turns out that she has BPD, I don't want to date a girl with BPD. I am not willing to handle that. Some people are. I do not want to deal with that. If it turns out she has BPD or she has extreme emotional swings that are resembling BPD, I don't want to deal with that energy in my life. It's too draining, too negative, not worth it. And I will leave. If a girl yells at me in a condescending way, even though I was being respectful, if that happens, I'll give her one warning. Tell her that if you continue doing that, if that happens again, I'm leaving. But after that, I'm leaving. I'm done. That's it. You get one warning. That's something that I've learned from tolerating that kind of behavior in the past, because if you tolerate it once, it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. 99.99% of the time, that is how it plays out. So, yes, I'm willing to leave a girl 5 minutes into a date, even though this girl was beautiful, and I'll do it again. And yes, it might lower my overall lay count or my pickup batting average. But what's the point of pickup? Is it to sleep with as many women as possible? Or is it to have high quality connections, to have positive, memorable experiences, to get to know women that challenge you, that excite you, that make you feel alive, and that you have great experiences with? That's what it's about. To me, that's what it's about. And that doesn't mean, look, if you're not getting laid at all, if you're not taking the lead, if you're making excuses, that's bad too. You don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, I only want the perfect girl and I'm never going to. You don't want your ego to get involved in that way either. But if your goal, your measure for success is I get laid, then that is going to end up leading to hollow experiences. The pickup artist community in general doesn't really teach walking away. The goal is always to get laid. That is the assumed goal. But the way I teach it, the way I view it, but the way I see it, the goal is only to get laid if it turns out that you have good chemistry and a good connection first. And the first stage of any seduction is finding that out, is making that determination, and always being willing to change your mind as well as to always be willing to change your mind. That's very important. So the practical step that I would recommend taking after watching this video is to write down a list of things that you will not accept in women. To write down the qualities, the traits, the behaviors, like trying to gold dig, for example, being addicted to drugs, being someone who is very ideological. That's one that's big for me, is if a girl is very ideological and she doesn't really think for herself, that is something that is too negative for me to want. That is something that I will not put up with for a long time. That is something that I'm not willing to put up with. But come up with a list and be aware of that when you're interacting with women. Start screening women for those traits. And if a girl has the negative traits that you don't want to deal with, genuinely walk away. Be willing to leave. Not to be cruel, but because it's not a positive situation, right? It's not a win-win. Your goal to just get laid. If you don't like the girl, you don't have a connection, it's not going to be satisfying for you. It's not going to be satisfying for her. There's really no net gain. Sex is better. The stronger the connection, the better the chemistry is. So, ultimately, I highly recommend writing that list and doing so and acting in accordance with and being willing to reject women if they cross certain boundaries will actually make you much more attractive to the women who you genuinely connect with, who you do have chemistry with. Because you're not a pushover, you're not fake, you're not someone that's willing to tolerate things that's willing to tolerate negative behavior. That actually makes you more attractive, and it increases your self-esteem. It increases your self-worth, and that will help you attract higher quality women who have high self-esteem as well. Because one of the biggest problems with the pickup community, the red pill community as well, is they see women as low quality. They see women as toxic and narcissistic, and there are a lot of girls like that, don't get me wrong. But the problem is, because their focus is just getting laid as much as possible, as much sex as possible, they don't realize that they don't attract the high quality women that they could have healthy relationships with. Those women are not interested because they can sense that this guy is a shark who just wants to rack the numbers. He just wants to feed his ego. That's all he wants. He doesn't genuinely want a connection. And there are many girls who live on that wavelength, who are plastic and just care about image. But spending time with them, to me, is like nails on a chalkboard. And I've slept with those kind of girls. I've done it a number of times. Very beautiful women who I had no connection with, just to feel cool, to feel proud. But ultimately, it was not satisfying at all. And it was not benefiting me on the whole. It was not leading me to a better life. So I highly recommend that you think about that. And I do want to be clear that there is another side to that coin. If you're the guy who is looking for perfection and you need every girl that you have a one-night stand with to be perfect, and you're rejecting every single girl you meet, well, then you're being ridiculous too. That's also ego. You're going to meet, if you're going out and talking to 20, 30 girls, you're going to meet a few every single night that you have a good connection with, at least a good enough connection that you could have a positive experience hooking up with them, right? But you should also at the same time be willing to reject a woman no matter how beautiful she is if you do not have chemistry, if her values do not align with yours, if her values are in, how would I put it? If who she is as a person contradicts too strongly with your values, you should be willing to leave at a moment's notice. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button. And if you want to work with me personally, click the link below. All right, I'm deciding whether to do one more or not. In this video, you're going to learn how to pick up girls like a vampire. And that might sound ridiculous, but I'm going to be breaking down a scene from the show The Vampire Diaries that is a good example of how to use dominance and raw sexual energy to turn a woman on. And it's very interesting that vampires are the number one fantasy that women have in romance novels. It's that women that are portrayed in romance novels and romance TV shows and movies. Twilight, The Vampire Diaries, Teen Wolf, True Blood. Vampires are all over the place. Why are women so attracted to vampires? Well, we're going to talk about that. And even though, yes, you probably are not going to end up, and although, no, you don't need to suck a girl's blood to turn her on, there are certain qualities that vampires possess that we're going to talk about in this video that women do find extremely seductive.
Just because Jeremy's a bad student doesn't mean there's cheating on Bonnie.
You're making excuses for someone you love. That's what you do. The worse the behavior, the more you're trying to film.
And you keep trying to make this about us.
Yeah, because you keep trying to make it about anything else. You're making excuses for someone you love. That's what you do. The worse.
Just because Jeremy's a bad student doesn't mean there's cheating on Bonnie.
You're making excuses for someone you love. That's what you do. The worse the behavior, the more you're trying to film.
And you keep trying to make this about us.
Yeah, because you keep trying to make it about anything else.
You know what? Fine. But don't pretend that you came here for Jeremy. If you want to talk about last night, talk.
Here's the thing, Elena. I don't know what to say, or do, or think. All I know is that right now, I want to rip your clothes off right here in the middle of this hall and throw you in one of these classrooms and kiss every square inch of your body while a bunch of people that drive minivans listen, wishing they were us.
So there is a lot going on there. There's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of psychology behind what he's saying and doing and why it's so seductive. For one, he's extremely confident. That alone is, of course, very powerful. For one, he's very confident. That is one of the factors at play. Why do I keep saying factors at play? God damn it. For one, he's very confident. For two, he's taking a risk. He's being very sexual in a public setting. So it's something that is a little bit wrong, right? It's naughty, if you will. That also is a turn on for women, taking risks, doing things that are taboo, because women, more so than men, are taught, they're given something called the Madonna whore complex, where they are shamed and made to feel guilty about their sexuality, about their desires. And so they are repressed. And that makes it so something that is a little bit dark, like sex in public, is even more appealing to them than it is to men. Doing things that subvert the societal expectations of them are very much a turn on for women because they're repressed from that side of themselves. Now, the most important aspect of this, with all that said, the most important aspect of this is the dominance and submission. And that's actually why I believe women are so turned on by vampires. Vampires are physically powerful and they're dominant. Vampires are physically powerful, they're dominant, and they don't have control of their desire. So the idea of needing blood is a metaphor for the idea of needing sex. That's what it really is. That's why it's such a turn on, because the woman that is the object of a vampire's affection has to be afraid that he might kill her. He might lose control by, sucking her blood, she might turn him into a vampire, or he might turn her into a vampire or whatever. That fear, on one level, there's a fear there that is exciting, but there's also another aspect to it, which is the idea that he cannot control his desire for her. That is extremely attractive. That he has to restrain himself from what he wants. but he wants it more than anything in the world. So it's a metaphor for unrestrained desire. It is, in pickup terminology, known as the law of state transference. The law of state transference, which means when you feel something, that emotion gets transferred. And that applies to laughter, it applies to anger, but it also applies to sexual desire. So in this scene, you can feel how much he desires her. And he's saying it in a clever way by saying there's going to be a bunch of women who drive in vans wishing they were us, right? That's a very clever way to put it. But you can tell by the way he's closing in on her, by the way he's looking at her, by the voice, everything about him is oozing, is reflective, radiates sexual desire. And that sexual desire turns her on. Women desire to be desired. Never forget that. Women desire the feeling of being desired. That's what this scene shows, how powerful that is. And the last aspect of it is just dominance. He's taking the lead. He is unrestrained. He is telling her what he wants to do to her. He is telling her exactly what he wants to do to her without any hesitation whatsoever. And when you put all those things together, you have a scene that is a great example of what seduction looks like. Yes, this is a TV show that's a fantasy that's about vampires, but it's a fantasy that's a sexual fantasy written by women, made for women. Men consume porn. Some women do too, but much less so than men. Women consume romance. Romance novels are the best-selling books in the world, and the vast majority of the readership is women. And it's basically porn, but for women, because women are more imaginative when it comes to sex. They're less physical. Their desire is less purely physical and has a lot more going and is a lot more complicated. But a scene like this, but those books genuinely turn women on. And a scene like this shows a great example of what that looks like.
That's probably a bad idea, right? Same class.
The fact that he walked away there makes everything he did a lot more powerful. And this is something you can actually implement in your life. If you're making out with a girl, if you do anything that escalates the thing, if you're doing anything that escalates the situation towards sex, pull back as well. I don't mean you have to leave the girl, but be the first to pull away. Don't just be the first to escalate, be the first. Don't just be the first to escalate, also be the first to pull away. That creates tension. Because if you're constantly moving things forward, it becomes predictable. She knows exactly where things are going, and there's not much room for her sense of desire to build. But if you pull away and make her wonder what's going to happen next, you create that push-pull dynamic, then that causes the sexual tension to amplify. And that causes the sexual tension to amplify. And that's something that you can implement all the way from saying hello to the bedroom, to be moving things forward, because you do have to take the lead as a man, unless you're lucky enough to meet a girl that wants to do that herself. That's pretty rare. But you're going to have to make the first move, but you also want to be the first to pull back. And not only does that create sexual tension, it also creates comfort. It builds trust because she knows that you're not going to be super pushy, right? You're not going because then she knows that you're not going to be too pushy. And that's one of women's biggest concerns. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button. And if you want to work with me personally to help get your dating life handled and to help you pick up women like a vampire, um, then I can help you do that. No, like more seriously, I can give you a specific strategy for being able to implement the underlying principles of why women find this archetype so attractive. Dominance, a strong desire, power, dominance, a strong sense of desire and power. How to exude those traits and use them to your advantage in a way that turns women on. I will help you be able to do that. Make sure to click the link below to schedule a free call to learn more. All right, and hopefully, oh shit, oh my God. Well,